Hiya crafters, Amy here with Amy's Wares, and today I'm going to make a textured 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗀 card with some fun products. I have this Crafter's Companion 3D embossing folder that I'm going to take on its maiden voyage, and this awesome Lawn Fawn die. Now these have been in my stash for a minute, and it's time to give them some love. Here's a photo of the finished card. I'm so pleased with how this turned out, so stay tuned and I will show you how I made it. I have Something Borrowed, Flirty Fuchsia, and Tiki Torch. These are the three bright colors from 𝗂𝗄𝗄𝗄𝗃 that I'm going to use for ink blending. Now you can see that pad is really juicy. I just did go through and use my re-inkers on all of my mini ink pads recently, so all of them are quite juicy. You're going to see my blending is a little bit spotty at first. It does dry back and kind of flatten out a little bit, but I know also that I'm going to be putting some spatter and going to 3D emboss this, so it's not really going to matter if it's not a perfect blend. So don't worry about that if you're doing a similar technique. It doesn't have to be perfect blending. Now I'm going into this Something Borrowed, and I'm just going back a little bit back and forth as needed just to kind of blend the colors together. The blue into the purple is really spotty, so I did come back and grab that Flirty Fuchsia just to kind of blend that out a little bit from the other side. But ultimately these bright rich colors worked really well together. Now I was mindful to put the blue next to the purple because those will get along. And then that Flirty Fuchsia, since it's kind of a reddish purple, I knew that would get along okay with the orange. Now, if I would have tried to blend the blue into the orange, however, that would have kind of muddied up the colors. So that's where you apply just a little bit of basic color theory, just to make sure that your colors can kind of stay true and not get kind of inadvertently turned into neutrals. So now I'm opening this up. I'm just seeing how much I can take down this panel with a border and still be able to fit this 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗃 die on top of it. I have this deckled edge die. This is from Craft Stash. I don't think it's available anymore, but I will link something similar in the video description box below. If I forget, do let me know in the comments. Here I'm just poking out the pieces. Initially I was thinking I was going to leave those inner portions of the letters in there just because they kind of stayed put and I liked how thick the letters were, but ultimately I did end up kind of poking those out. And I did cut this twice, so I am ultimately going to stack these two together. You do want to keep the inside of the A and the inside of the O for the outline just to kind of finish that. It is a preference. Obviously, you could leave that part out if you wanted, but I did want to include those two little pieces. So I'm going to set those aside. Now here I have some shimmer spray. You could do this with just water if you're doing a water reactive ink, but I wanted to have that little bit of shimmer as well as the water reactivity. So I'm doing kind of a gentle mist, and then I'm also using the stick inside the bottle just to kind of lay some bigger droplets down. Now I'm getting these 𝗂𝐬𝐬 watercolors so I can do some black spatter, and I will also get my white for some white splatter as well. So I'm kind of going all out. I think there's something about this color blend in particular where I really love it when it has white and black splatter all over it. I think it's just really neat. This is P.H. Martin's, I'm trying to remember the name of it. Again, I'll try and remember to link it below. If I forget, let me know. But I'm just using the edge of my stamping block here just to kind of allow me to use the brush to kind of spray some of that all over the panel. Now I'm going to try and heat set it a little bit with my Heat It tool. Now here I decided to just use liquid glue and then glue it down directly onto this panel that hasn't had all the pieces poked out yet. I feel like it made it a little bit easier to line it up. It's really not an issue. If I would have poked all the pieces out and lined it up, it would have been the same sort of thing, but I was just seeing if this made it a little bit easier. I think honestly either way would work just as well. So I'm just pouncing off some excess on some scrap paper so I don't have too much oozage. Now if you're doing this and you do have a lot of oozage and you're going to poke it out a little bit after the fact, then you might have some issue because then it might kind of glue the little pieces together that would have otherwise poked out. So I didn't wait too long. I gave it just a few seconds to cure, and then I went through with my pokey tool and kind of poked out the little pieces, again saving that inner portion of the O and the inner portion of the A because I will kind of liquid glue those down onto my panel after the fact. So I'm going to stack them, the inner portions of the O and the A, so they have the same height as the two stacked pieces for the heart. But ultimately it's it's not rocket science. You guys can see what I'm doing. I'm just kind of poking out the pieces, leaving the outline, and then I will ultimately place this down on the panel. Now I realized I got some smudge or a fingerprint or something on there, so I'm using my sand eraser tool just to kind of clean that up, because that was frustrating to have that happen after all the effort. Now this panel might be a little bit damp still, but there's no kind of paint that's transferring over from the splatter. I want to make sure it was dry enough so it didn't get inside the embossing folder. If it did, it would have been no biggie. I could have wiped it away, but look at that texture. Amazing. I love embossing folders. You guys know this. No surprise there. Now this 𝗵𝗲𝗃 fits nicely right on top of the panel. I'm going to pop up the panel with this 1 millimeter thick, 1 inch wide foam tape. I get this from scrapbook.com. This has been my favorite lately because it does give it some dimension, but it doesn't make it too bulky for the post, because I feel like the post office has been getting a little bit more finicky lately. So this is a nice way to kind of best of both worlds. You get the dimension, but it isn't going to cause you issues in transit, hopefully. So I'm just putting 4 strips of this down on the back to give it nice even support, just using these little extra pieces from that remaining bit of the roll. And I'm going to remove the backer and then apply this down right to a card base. Now I'm using 120-pound accent opaque cardstock for both the panel and the card base, and the card base is US A2 size, 4¼ inches by 5½. So you can see there's just that tiny little white border, which I like. I feel like it ties in nicely with the die cut. And I'm going to finish it off with some crystal metallic quicksilver card bling. If you buy anything from A Colorful Life Designs, be sure to use my coupon AmyFan10 at checkout. You'll save 10% on your complete order, and that's for stencil, stamps, bling, all of it. So be sure to check out that lovely woman-owned business. Put that down in a smattering, and now on the back I'm going to use my custom stamp from another small woman-owned business in the States, Jessica Lynn Originals. I'll link that stamp as well below. All the products that I used are in the video description box. If you expand and scroll down, you'll find all those details. If you use my links, it really does help me out. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, hit the thumbs up, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.